Hi everyone, how you doing? Just back to do another video, and I really wanted to discuss something that I just could not quite believe, and it's the English media's treatment of Thomas Tuchel. Now, I know a lot of you will be thinking, well, it's their job to just, investigate and, push the boundaries when interviewing Tuchel and, try and get some good headlines, but it's just gone way too far in my opinion. And there are four main culprits that we need to discuss. I say the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph, Rob Dorsett from Sky Sports News in particular, but there's a few at Sky Sports News, which I'm sad to say, and talksport. Just those four are just absolutely horrendous in my opinion. I mean, first thing first, the Daily Mail's newspaper headline that was when Tuchel was first appointed, they said, dark days for England. I think it was the first headline, and it's just absolutely disgusting. It's clearly xenophobic, and it's that's the kind of thing you put on a newspaper if you're talking about a terrorist attack or something, not because England appointed a German manager. I mean, seriously. And also, I don't think we had these discussions at the time, but if Pep Guardiola was appointed England manager, I guarantee you there would not be anywhere as near as much fuss. It's just because it's maybe because he's German or something, and the English newspapers have this kind of outdated, disgusting view of Germany that there's some sort of still enemy to us or a strong rival in football. Even though I don't really consider Germany a rival in football. I know they've knocked England out a few times in the past, but I think even Germans have admitted they don't view England as a rival. Although maybe that's because they've been England so many times. Anyway, the newspaper's treatment of Tuchel was just really poor. And then there was one thing, I think of the Daily Telegraph. I think it was the Daily Telegraph. I'm not sure. But it was from a reporter, I think, called Henry Winter, I believe. And there was also this guy who came to Sky Sports News, and he was having a discussion about his controversial selections, Thomas Tuchel. And they were just basically saying how the reason he's left Jude Bellingham out is that he's had an off the field argument with him because his mother is. He had that comment I think a few months ago, which I don't even remember happening, where he said Tuchel said his mother in a press conference was horrified or disgusted by Bellingham's behaviour at the end of the match or something, because I don't know if he was shouting at an official or he was getting angry or something. Anyway, he apologised for it and said because English is not first language, but it was about Tuchel's mother who said it, and I'm like, who cares anyway? It's ridiculous. And anyway, the media newspapers have somehow warped that into this Tuchel versus Bellingham. They've had an argument and they're falling out, and that's why he's not selected him, which is, I think, is a load of rubbish. And Tuchel said so in a recent press conference. But they've now said it was I think the newspaper headline was stop treating Bellingham like a naughty boy. He's not. It's his manager. It's his prerogative. He can choose who he wants, and he's a successful manager with a great record, and. He can, if he wants to leave Bellingham out, then that's his decision. But I think it was a good decision to leave Bellingham out of the recent squad because he's barely played. He's started one match this entire season, I think, and you want him to rest a lot because there's a friendly match against Wales. What's the point in playing Bellingham in a friendly match? Can you imagine if he got injured in that match, and then England, how the newspapers and reporters would destroy Tuchel if he got injured? I think that was a smart decision, and I mean I understand that he said his primary decision for leaving Bellingham out was that he wanted to keep the same squad. So I guess people could think, well, maybe he just wants to keep. It's nothing to do with any potential beef or arguments between them though. So that's a load of rubbish. I understand he said the primary reason for leaving out was to keep the same squad, and therefore he might leave Bellingham out the next one. But I do think Bellingham is. I would hope that he would pick Bellingham and get him in the squad again, just because I think every time Bellingham's paid for England, he's been basically man of the match every single time, and I think he'd be great in the England team if he could fit into that number 10 position. But obviously Tuchel's got to tell Bellingham, you've got to play in this certain position in the formation that I'm playing, which I believe is a 4-1, and you need to play in that. Otherwise, you need to be able to play in that and create chances and get the ball through to wingers and stay in your lane. Don't run around the pitch doing whatever you want. And then, hopefully, which I believe Bellingham can do that will be the situation in the next World Cup. But some of the questions, again, going back to the newspapers, Daily Telegraph and Mail, I believe, manufactured this ridiculous argument between Bellingham and Tuchel that doesn't exist. Because I think they just want Tuchel to fail. I think they're just salivating in the hopes that he fails as England manager, which is another reason why I really want Tuchel to do well with England. But I have a list here of some of the things I was horrified at. And yeah, his very first interview, and I want to talk about Rob Dorsett mainly this YouTube video. Rob Dorsett, like his very first, he does most of the interviews with Tuchel. The first one he did, he asked him, are you going to sing the national anthem? I mean, to be fair, a few people asked him that, but that's such a stupid question. Like, who cares? It's not important to managing the England team. I understand it's the England team, but there are plenty of foreign managers, and at the end of the day, he still is a professional getting paid to do a job, and he's clearly passionate and serious about it. I love it when I see him celebrating England goals, and people should just get over that. It doesn't matter if he's not singing the national anthem. And then Rob Dorsett also asked him, are you going to live in England? Or it's just, who cares? As long as he can do the job. It doesn't matter if he's living in England, because the matches are only there's like a 7-month break in between England matches. So there's no point in him living in England. As long as, he goes to games and sees how players are playing and everything, then, it's fine. Then he did this second interview of Tuchel just before the Serbia game, and I thought England played quite well at Andorra, and so did Tuchel, and I think, but obviously they didn't get like a high-scoring game because there was some poor finishing, particularly from Eze actually. But there was, it was Rob Dorsett, I'm 90% sure it was him, and he sat down with him and he said, so, do you know it's been 16 years since you first became manager of mine or something? It was like 2009, and he was like, oh, okay, cool. I thought Rob Dorsett was going to say how far you've come, you must be so proud, so happy, and so excited managing for England now. I thought that's where Rob Dorsett was leading to, but instead he said, when you became manager of mine in 2009, that was like the last time England lost a World Cup qualifier. And I was kind of shocked at that, because it was almost like it was like a really hostile interview where it was almost like a veiled threat towards Tuchel, like this would be the first time you lose. Because I think up to the Serbia game, people think they'll play the toughest match away from home for England in their World Cup qualifying group. I know, I just thinking that potentially he could lose this, and obviously Rob Dorsett I just think he's been treating Tuchel really unfairly. And he was saying how, England have only lost a certain amount of qualifiers in the last 20 years or whatever, and England haven't obviously lost one for 16 years, and I remember Tuchel was like, oh wow, thanks to the pressure, no. It was basically like a veiled threat, like, if you lose this, then this will be quite bad. And it was almost like he was expressing an opinion, I feel, Rob Dorsett, on how poor he's doing right now. But he's not doing poor. England hadn't conceded a goal in their qualifying campaign up to that point, and he's won all their matches. He only lost a friendly to Senegal 3-1, but that was right at the end of the season, and they lost there was a load of injuries. I think he was playing a load of players out of position, and it's I don't think that a lot should be read into that. Some should be read into that, of course, to understand why Senegal won and they beat them, but not too much. And that interview was just really hostile in general, just asking questions, saying how, not criticising, but calling him out for maybe not selecting certain players, or maybe picking players when he shouldn't be playing them, like Henderson or something. I'm actually okay with the Henderson decision, because I think he's played well for England when he has Henderson, and especially at the last 2022 World Cup. And I think he's actually come to the Premier League and he's actually playing consistently well for Brentford now. And he's starting consistently, which is more than you can say for some other England players. And he's got 2 quality assists, I think, so far as well. So I think people should lay off Henderson, just because he's the oldest player in the team, he therefore shouldn't play. I understand people want Adam Wharton in, and I agree, Adam Wharton I think should be in the team, but Henderson's one of the only out-and-out central defenders in midfield, so I'm actually okay with him. But anyway, back to Rob Dorsett, and honestly, some of the things, he did a press conference of Sky Sport News after the team selection, and he was like, wow, Tuchel's left out Bellingham, this is ridiculous, they clearly have this argument. That was settled. He was basically saying to everyone on Sky Sport News, they clearly have fallen out. Well, I don't think they have, and he was saying how, he's got certain things to answer for in this press conference. It's going to be huge. He doesn't have to answer for anything. He's the England manager. He doesn't owe you anything, Rob Dorsett or Sky Sports News. It's his prerogative to choose who he wants, and like, not picking Foden's, like, not set the Premier League on fire. He's got 1 goal and 0 assists in 5 games, I think, in the Premier League. And yes, he is playing well now, though, which I'm happy for him, but it doesn't mean he should suddenly jump back into the England team, especially after he's played probably 1 or 2 good games in the last 5 years for England. And Tuchel also has selected, by the way, Foden, Bellingham, Wharton, and Rashford, and maybe Grealish, I'm not sure, but he's picked a lot of the players people keep criticising him for not selecting, so he has selected them regularly. He doesn't have a problem with them, evidently, but obviously he's seen some of them and he's maybe not impressed with them, or he's fed up with them getting injured, and he's tried out some other England players who are now consistently playing well for the England shirt, and that's fine if he wants to reward them with places in the England team again. But obviously there must be some dramatic argument between Bellingham and Tuchel, and also there was, I don't know, it wasn't Henry Winter, it was like another reporter from the Daily Telegraph, I think he was saying, and Sky Sports News, with that there's clearly an argument between them, and that he should just make it public so everyone could know what the situation is. So what is he talking about? It was so desperate for drama. And there was also I forgot what the name is of the guy, but there was another guy, and then there was a woman, a female reporter, I forgot her name, and there was Julian Laurent. I was waiting for any 4 of them to suddenly say, guys, this is ridiculous, they don't have an argument. Tuchel's just rewarding players that have played well for him consistently for England, which I think is a good strategy. But they also, there must be a massive problem between them, and like, the English media is so toxic, they want Tuchel to fail. And I think that's just so poor. And I think it's one of the reasons why England didn't do well. There's a number of reasons, in my opinion, because of Southgate. But I don't think it helps going into tournaments when the media keeps interviewing all the players and the managers and saying, you've got an amazing team. You should surely be competing to win this. And like going into the Euros, there was a lot of them were saying you've got to be favourites for this. I don't think that helps the psyche of the team. And I like Tuchel's kind of no-nonsense attitude to the media, saying, kind of shut up, let me do my job, I like that, And a lot of people were saying, I think Rob Dorsett again was saying, like, he's kind of hypocritical, Tuchel, because he's only selected, selected someone who's not playing consistently. I think it was like Lewis Skelly or Jordan Henderson, like he therefore does have his favourites, and it's not necessarily how well you're playing, but that's rubbish because Henderson is playing well for Brentford, and there's an injury crisis at left back, and a lot of his points I think were just ridiculous and not fair to Tuchel at all. And these people are just saying there's clearly a problem there. I don't think there is a problem there. I obviously hope Bellingham will be selected, but he could do with the 10 days off. It's a friendly. Why would he play him in the friendly? And for him to get injured. Also, I think managers and players are just fed up with going to the tournament and then having to start a team, 11 players together who have actually never played together before, which has happened a few times. And I think Tuchel just wants to have his team set, and he's right in what he's saying, and people just ferociously questioning the manager is just completely unhelpful. And like some people I think are even questioning like his position, even though he's won all the matches. Like you see other teams like France just drew with Iceland, they dropped points to them. Spain, and I think they blew out Georgia out the park. They beat them only 2-0, and Germany lost to Slovakia. They just scraped past Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland played really, really well that last game. I watched that, and a lot of people are saying, "Wow, this that's quite quite poor." But none of their medias, I don't think, their respective like newspapers or in France or in Spain were like suggesting like, oh, the manager might be in trouble there. And I know it's like Didier Deschamps and De La Fuente, and they've already won international titles, but like there is nowhere near as much hysteria in like their newspapers than there is in English newspapers when there's a tough result. And England haven't exactly had bad results, they've just not scored a ton of goals. But I don't think there's a problem with that. I think Tuchel's sorting his system out. He's getting his style of play ready. I'm happy with how Tuchel's performed so far as England manager. I really want him to do well. But it's just this constant ridiculous line of questioning and aggressive and almost toxic picture of a reporting that some certain journalists do, and I just think Rob Dorsett again. He also had a thing with Southgate actually, where when Southgate resigned or left the England setup, I think he said Dorsett said something like Southgate had just had enough of the fans because the fans have been treating him too roughly, or like he'd had enough of them. It's like, what are you talking about? The football played at the last year was like an abomination, and like saying it's like the fans' reason why Southgate's left, I think in my opinion just shows that Dorsett had some of his favourites, and like he clearly liked Southgate, and he clearly's kind of taken against Tuchel, which I'm not really pleased with. And this idea, and then talksport as well, oh my word, like some of the people like Rory Jennings just go on there, I think, to express a ridiculous opinion and get a load of views. Now I think that's kind of just like the bottom feeder of kind of journalism there on talksport, and they just say ridiculous things to get headlines and clicks, and I guess sometimes it works, but it's just rubbish in my opinion. And then there's all these people saying how, his decision to get rid of Bellingham is a shocking one. Like, if he's clearly dropped him for the World Cup, so I think it was one of the titles, and he's not going to, if he doesn't take Bellingham to the World Cup and then they lose, then he's going to get ruthlessly criticised by it. And it's like, first of all, I think he is going to take Bellingham. I would hope he would. And another thing is just, it's fine if he doesn't want to select him for one squad. I mean, the overreaction is ridiculous by people, and I think people just need to really calm down and stop this ridiculously aggressive line of questioning and just let him get on with the job, really. I mean, it's the poor guy. I mean, and then there was also people like, is it Gabby talking about our own Alex Crooks, who were like kind of laying into him for calling out the media because Tuchel said the fans weren't great, it weren't big, and I think that's right. I think the atmosphere was pretty flat, but obviously that's probably because it was a midweek game and it was a friendly, and there was some travel disruption, I think. But it's fine for him to call that out. Like, he said the atmosphere in Serbia was great, and that's good. Like, he wants a top England atmosphere, and I support that. I think some of the England fans, they could do a little bit of a better job to get a good atmosphere going, and I think that's good. He's trying to ramp up the fans, which is nice. But of course, people were saying it was ill-judged. I think that was Alex Crooks on talksport, and Sam Matterface as well. He keeps on talksport. He keeps calling him out for being kind of selective and bizarre in his kind of selections, and saying how not selecting Bellingham, could backfire. And it's like it's fine. It's I think you need to trust in Tuchel. I mean, obviously, I would hope Bellingham would be in the team, and so would Wharton. But he said there's an open route for players to get back into the team. It's just if players are playing really well, should he suddenly just like throw out Rodgers and even Morgan Gibbs-White, who's played well for England, and chuck out like Bowen for Grealish, who's been playing really well. Bowen, and I understand Grealish is playing well as well, but there's stiff competition there. And I don't think if any of them are playing really particularly badly, they should be chucked out. I mean, maybe Ruben Loftus-Cheek, but I think in training he's been doing pretty well as well. So I just think some of the conversations on there are just way too harsh and critical of Tuchel, and I feel they're just almost like salivating, like hoping that he fails because he's maybe German, not English, and they maybe don't like that he kind of like pushes back on them. I think Rob Dorsett said he had to give like a prickly or pointed answer to him. It's like, yeah, Rob, well, stop asking him like kind of ridiculous questions. And he brought up one in the press conference once that you brought up that your mum thought Bellingham's behaviour was disgusting or something, and he said, oh, thanks for bringing that up. And it's like, yeah, it's like, what is wrong with you? Just leave the poor guy alone. He's a successful manager, and he's really trying to do well for England, but comments like when Rob Dorsett first interviewed him said, media like with foreign managers has kind of been obsessed with them and like harassed them relentlessly, and he said, like, you prepared for that? Like, what kind of a question is that? We don't want him to get scared, or like he even said in his first interview to like, wow, should I have not taken this then? And I was like, what is wrong? Why is Rob Dorsett being so aggressive? I don't know. I know he's trying to like, it's his job to question him, I guess, and report, but it's just he's gone too far, and to me he's showing that he like does not like Tuchel. And I understand they need to generate like topics of discussion and stuff, but they're just generating stuff out of thin air, and I think they're being way too harsh on him and saying, stuff like, oh, Bellingham clearly he phone called him, said he wants to be part of it, but like dropping it, saying he's he's clearly had a problem with him, and he doesn't have a problem with him. I don't think it's just unfair, and I don't think they treat him, if he was English, they would treat him like this, or if it's someone like Pep Guardiola, I feel, or maybe even Jurgen Klopp. I just think because he's no nonsense, kind of like fed up with the media, and to be fair, those press conferences of football are so poor. The questioning, I mean, it's atrocious, and yeah, I'm not surprised when he has to deal with Rob Dorsett, giving him, haranguing him every interview or press conference, that he gets fed up with them. So yeah, I just want to say this: I think Rob Dorsett needs to chill out a bit and give him a chance, and Sky Sports, the newspapers, need to stop trying to create completely rubbish headlines out of nothing. And yeah, talksport, probably maybe not get Rory Jennings on there again, and stop having these kind of spiky conversations with some ridiculous opinions. I guess the whole point is talksport is that you get all these crazy opinions in there and you get to discuss them and debate them. But I think everyone needs to back off Tuchel, give him some time, and just let him do what he does best, which is managing. So yeah, just wanted to say that. Didn't want to get into a bit of a rant, but I just thought, so tired of how toxic the English media is, and I don't think it helps England's chances. But yeah, say what you think in the comments, and subscribe, and I'll see you later.